Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. Could I invite you now to please stand for the arrival of Her Excellency. Could you please remain standing for the mounting of the catafalque party? Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Darren Mitchell, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this service of commemoration today, which marks the Battle for Australia, remembered on the first Wednesday in September each year. I extend this welcome to you on behalf of the organising committee, the New South Wales Battle for Australia Commemoration Committee, chaired by Group Captain Doug Rosa. Doug, along with his wife Karen, escorted our special guest, Her Excellency Governor Beazley today, as well as Minister Sidoti, and we welcome all of our dignitaries and are grateful for your presence as we seek to mark the experience of the Battle for Australia, both on the battlefield and the home front. Today is a National Day of Commemoration, alongside other such days in our nation's commemorative calendar, Anzac Day, Remembrance Day among them. It recognises the service and sacrifice of Australia's Defence Forces and its home defences in protecting our land from 1942 through to war's end in 1945, with battles to the west, to the north and to the east, across our seas and on our mainland, as well as on the territories of all of our near neighbours. We conduct our remembrance of this time at the Cenotaph, a site that holds special significance for this annual commemoration. Prime Minister John Curtin at the time organised and spoke here at a rally on the 17th of February 1942 to stir all Australians to action following the fall of Singapore just 2 days prior. On the day between the fall of Singapore and that event here on the 17th of February, Prime Minister Curtin had termed the threat from the advancing enemy forces as a battle for Australia. And so today we commemorate 77 years since that battle began, more than 77 years since the term Battle for Australia was coined. Australia's casualties in the Pacific Campaign were to number more than 17,000. But of course the sacrifice was not ours alone. We acknowledge today the presence of consular representatives of many nations who are involved, particularly the United States Consul General Ms Sharon Hudson-Dean, the Deputy Consul General of Canada Ms Angela Bogdan, the Acting Consul General of Papua New Guinea, Mr Leo Oweki, and representing the New Zealand Consulate today, Mr Greg Makutu. And so whilst we remember Australians who fell, we must remember too the 15,000 Papua New Guinea civilians who lost their lives, as well as more than 120,000 Americans. During the Second World War, Canada was to see more than 1 million of its people serve in uniform. And New Zealand was also to suffer. It suffered the highest proportion of fallen to its population among Allied forces. The battle for Australia was to see by war's end almost 1 million Australians serve in uniform, when our population was some 7 million people. And today we pay tribute to all those who served, and in particular those who paid the ultimate sacrifice in defence of our nation. And we'll begin our time of commemoration in prayer. And I invite now Battle for Australia Committee member, the Reverend Jeffrey Usher, to lead us.
We gather in gratitude and remembrance as we remember the dark days 3/4 of a century ago when Australia faced the threat of invasion. As we join in prayer, we hold in our hearts colleagues and friends who are unable to be with us today because of illness or infirmity. We remember the service personnel who answered the call to arms and who served in the various theatres of war, particularly in Papua New Guinea and the northern areas of Australia. We remember those who died in the conflict or as a result of injuries, those who were injured, those who survived physically but who carried psychological scars. We remember also the many civilians who were killed or injured. And we remember all the families who suffered the loss of loved ones or whose lives were shattered in other ways beyond their control. We offer our thanks for the sacrifices made, for the services rendered, for the courage and fortitude of many people, named or unnamed, for the countless small acts which helped to overcome the threat of invasion and to build the peaceful society in which we now are privileged to live. We pray that such sacrifice and service will never again be made necessary. We pray for healing and reconciliation, for a sense of forgiveness and understanding, for renewed hope for international unity and peace in place of division and conflict. We pray that those who have been bereaved will be comforted in their sorrow and enabled to live without hatred or bitterness. There is no glory in war, but there can be honour. On this special day of commemoration, we remember, acknowledge and honour all those who served in different ways in the battle for Australia. O God, you are the universal spirit of love and fellowship. As we remember the conflicts of the past and indeed of the present, give us the strength and the determination to be among those who work to ensure that they will not be repeated in the future. Help us to envisage and establish a world in which all people can live in peace and harmony, with respect, love and justice for all, because we are all children of the one human family. We pray that such a vision may become a reality, not merely a dream. Amen. And I invite you to join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
The Sydney Women's Vocal Orchestra will now perform for us a piece called The Captive's Hymn. The Captive's Hymn was written in 1942 by Margaret Dryburgh, who was a Presbyterian missionary working among the Chinese in Singapore when the island fell. Along with hundreds of other European women and children, she was interned in Sumatra and on neighbouring islands. And in the times of that battle, those who didn't succumb to illness endured captivity for the duration of the war. The camp members included Australian Army nurses from Malaya and Singapore, among them Vivian Bullwinkle, the sole survivor of the infamous Bunker Island massacre. So we welcome today, for the first time at a Battle for Australia commemoration, the Sydney Women's Vocal Orchestra to perform the Captives Hymn, with musical direction provided by Ms Imelda Crimmins. It is our privilege today to welcome Gudjala Elder Harry Allie BEM, who will deliver for us the 2019 Battle for Australia Commemoration Address. Harry served for 23 years in the Royal Australian Air Force, holding at discharge the rank of Warrant Officer. He received the British Empire Medal in 1980 for his military service, which included postings to the United States of America and to Malaysia. Subsequently pursuing careers in the defence industry and in the public service in support of Indigenous families and communities, He has continued in retirement to work for increased Indigenous participation in tertiary education and has held advisory positions at the University of Western Sydney and at the University of Technology, Sydney. Numerous awards have been granted for this work and for his efforts in reconciliation. Harry's efforts are probably especially recognisable to us in the field of commemoration. An original member of the Coloured Diggers project that developed the Anzac Day March in Redfern and led to the Yin and Madjami Memorial in Hyde Park, Harry also served as a New South Wales Centenary Ambassador. He is an Indigenous elder to the RAAF and chair of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Veterans Commemoration Committee, which initiated more than a decade ago the annual Indigenous commemoration held at the Anzac Memorial, and now an established ceremony on the city's commemorative calendar. And so, as I said, it is our great privilege to have Harry bring to us today the 2019 Battle for Australia Commemoration Address.
Your Excellency The Governor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and certainly to the school students that are here with us today. To begin, let me acknowledge the Gadigal people, the first inhabitants of this part of Sydney. For thousands of years, the Gadigal have called these southern shores of Sydney Harbour their home. Under the streets that we walk today are the imprints of the Gadigal feet. Under the sun that provides light to our endeavours, Gadigal ancestors worked and celebrating, nurturing the land which has provided the foundations of our Sydney metropolis. We express our gratitude today for their story, their welcome and their legacy. Our gathering place is a sacred site, a precious inheritance of land and of ceremony. We have built a memorial here, the Cenotaph, to indicate that we hold this site at the western end of Martin Place to be sacred. We know some of its sacred history as the site of recruitment during the First World War, as the home of Australia's dawn service tradition, and as many of you will know, as the place where Prime Minister John Curtin began to rally our nation in 1942 to face the battle for Australia. History adds layers, and it is on occasions like this one, a time of remembrance of the past, its struggles and sacrifices, its triumphs and its legacy, that we can dig a little deeper. If we can imagine a time when some of those layers had not yet been set down, before this was Martin Place, we would be standing on the banks of the tank stream, running towards where we are seated under what is the GPO Western Hotel, passing across our ceremony into Angel Place. The tank stream was a water source fundamental to the survival of the first European settlers, but also to the first peoples, to the Gadigal. The Indigenous peoples nurtured this area for its fresh drinking water and for its food sources, but it was valued for more than this. At night, the southern stars would be reflected on the water surface, feeding the yarning of tens of thousands of layers of history. Physical and spiritual nourishment came from the flowing waters. We share this place, a place of beginnings, and among those beginnings was the realisation in 1942 that Australia faced a real threat from those who would do it harm. In that moment, we came together as one nation, a land and its people, with its history and its promise to keep our nation together. Those years of the Second World War required displays of courage and a conviction of duty a determined commitment to peace, even in times of conflict, and a determined love of this nation, a unity of action and purpose. The Australian Defence Force has, in each generation, been at the forefront of this unity. Time and again, the ADF has demonstrated this, welcoming many Indigenous men and women with dignity into service of our country, where there is no time for misunderstandings, where the prevailing generalisation was not that we were different, but that we were all soldiers fighting for a cause. A spirit of acceptance from which I was to benefit over more than 2 decades serving in the Royal Australian Air Force. My people, the Gudjala, way up north in Charters Towers, also in 1942 it was the site of a RAF inland fuel depot, freshly commissioned. Many of the 3,000 to 4,000 Indigenous people who served during the Second World War were in the RAF, which was more open to the Indigenous service at the time. A handful are well known, such as fighter pilots Sergeant Glenn Waters, remembered up in Toomela, New South Wales, or Flight Sergeant Arnold Lockyer, who died tragically a few days after war's end, or Corporal Kath Worker, who served in the Women's Army service. There were many Indigenous women serving in the AWS, and certainly my auntie, Martha, who served in the Women's Land Army, and also women in the Women's Auxiliary Australian Air Force. And of course up my way there were the Torres Strait Islander units and the Northern Territory Special Reconnaissance Unit contributing to Homeland Defence. Our service was a service of all ranging from cook to aircraft mechanic, from home front surveillance to battlefield combat. All serving men and women sought the common good. There was a unity of purpose that time 77 years ago, a unity of purpose that spells to us today. In unity, we can build a nation at peace, a nation we can be proud of. May this place, the Cenotaph in Martin Place, the place of beginnings, but where we always remember the qualities that shone in times of crisis. Gathering together today, we mark that battle for Australia with our tributes and our respect. Together, we share our stories, we celebrate our culture, we remember our ancestors, as has been happening at this place for millennia. Like the water that's once flowed beneath us, we are nourished by such history. But may we also mark this sacred place today with our resolve, a resolve that an earlier generation's sacrifice may not have been in vain, that we today might even more strongly strive in unity for a land of freedom and of peace. Lest we forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you especially for such an insight into our gathering place today and an essential reminder of the unity necessary in times of crisis, especially the dangers that Australia faced during the latter part of the Second World War. Major General Gordon Maitland, an instigator of the Battle for Australia ceremony here in Sydney some 2 decades ago, passed away late last year. And he left a gift to us, a gift of a poem, Kokoda Pilgrimage, which is a moving reminiscence of those who didn't return from war in Papua New Guinea. Some extracts from that poem will be read today for us by Abby Hill and Luke Peterson from Marta Maria Catholic College. Kokoda Pilgrimage by Gordon Maitland.
Where are those friends of long ago, young men who gave their all, Ever present they haunt me still, when evening shadows fall.
They fell in the heat of battle, from some mist-shrouded place, or down a yawning chasm where deafening torrents race.
And for many who died lonely, no one was there to pray. With no one there, no hymns were sung, no bugles heard to play.
But at least they had the comfort of duty nobly done, even if then they did not know that in the end we won.
Their spirits were quickly taken from those who paid the price, and sent winging, winging, winging to enter paradise.
Most bodies lie in a graveyard, Bamana is its name, with ordered row on ordered row and headstones much the same.
A hallowed place of great beauty, a place to go and pray, a place to go and shed your tears on loved ones where they lay.
Saddest of all are missing those who haven't been found, worn by weather and passing years, now but a nameless mound.
They sleep in strange places where man has never trod, sunless, hidden, mysterious, known only unto God.
No matter where they all now rest, they are men that I knew, young men who answered the summons Australian bugles blew.
All left a priceless legacy, a land secure and free, and so we rise to salute them, a final act for me.
And how helpful that was to put us in the right frame, remembering those who fell and those with no known grave as we come to our floral tributes to be laid here at the Cenotaph. Those traditionally presented at the Battle for Australia ceremonies are sprigs of wattle, Australia's national flower. The use of wattle connects our ceremony with traditions of commemoration that emerged shortly after the landing at Gallipoli in 1915. Wattle was the principal flower used at the unveiling of Australia's first Gallipoli memorial, sited in Adelaide, only a few short months after the landing. I'll be inviting those who will lay official tributes today to come forward by name and to place their sprig of wattle under the guidance, firstly, of students from Marta Maria College, who will provide you with the sprig, and then under the guidance of the RSL Cenotaph attendants who have taken their place at the memorial. During this passage of tribute, Scots College Pipers will be playing the Lament. Our first tribute today will be brought by the Governor of New South Wales, Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beasley AO QC, accompanied by her husband Mr Dennis Wilson. Accompanied with Mr James Griffin MP, Member for Manly and Parliamentary Secretary for Veterans Affairs, who is representing the Premier of New South Wales today. Also Mr David Meehan MP for the entrance, representing the Leader of the New South Wales Opposition, Councillor Linda Scott, Deputy Mayor representing the Council of the City of Sydney, and Group Captain Doug Rosa, President and Chair of the Battle for Australia Association, New South Wales. Representing Riverwood Legion and Community Club, Mr Dick Matthews and Mr Ken Douglas. The Ode of Remembrance today will be recited by students Matthew Cowan and Sandra Mitrov from Tempe High School. The Ode of Remembrance.
They went with songs to battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end, against foes uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. You have the words in your program today and will be assisted in our singing by the Sydney Women's Vocal Orchestra and the New South Wales Police Band. We will follow.
Devoted to the love which heals all wounds, and to the courage which casts out fear, full of hope which never dies, let us go from here today, mindful together of our precious freedom and our great responsibilities. May we rededicate ourselves to seek truth boldly, to show love constantly, to serve all humanity faithfully, so that the love of God and the blessings of peace may be in our hearts and on our world, now and through the days ahead. Amen.
Please remain standing whilst the catafalque party dismounts and Her Excellency the Governor of New South Wales, the Honourable Margaret Beasley AOQC, and Mr Dennis Wilson depart from the memorial precinct. Please be seated. And finally, Miss Michelle Dunn, daughter of Mrs Daphne Dunn, who passed away recently and who was the wife of Albert Chown, BC, Second World War service. Guests, that brings to an end this service of commemoration. On behalf of Group Captain Doug Rosa and the New South Wales Battle for Australia Committee, I express our gratitude for those who assisted us in the commemoration today. A list of all those who have done so appears in your program, but I'd particularly like to mention the schools who have assisted: Marta Maria College, Tempe High School, Mosman Preparatory School, Scots College and St Andrews Cathedral School, and of course the terrific musical support today from Sydney Women's Vocal Orchestra and the New South Wales Police Band. We hope that you may return and join with us, stand with us again in September next year. And if you're interested in knowing more about the Battle for Australia Association, or perhaps becoming a member, you're invited to see the Secretary, Jeff Brown, who will be at this podium at the conclusion of our ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings to an end our ceremony.